I'm Sky McCurdy, Community Council President, Class of 2018.
I'm Vinay Merchant. I'm also 2018 Community Council Secretary. We're just here asking Mr. Webb questions in his office. The first question we have is regarding community morale this year. How has the community morale differed this year from previous years, and what do you think has instigated this change?
Great question, Vinay, and I'm glad you asked, because for me, without a doubt, I'm a firm believer in the positive energy of the senior class. And learned a long time ago from a mentor who believed that so goes the senior class, so goes the school year. Thanks to the two of you and Julia Strickler and Sage Reynolds and Forrest Carson, we've got great leadership of the senior class, and I think you guys are good and cohesive as a group, and believe in putting forth your best foot and creating the type of culture we want to have here present at Fountain Valley School. So without a doubt, when you take that initiative and you move forward, it allows all of us to operate at our best and move the ball forward for the community as a whole. So that, for me, without a doubt, is the most important and prominent reason why we've had such a good positive year. It starts with good leadership from the five of you, and starts with great attitude and great leadership from your classmates as well.
Awesome. Honing in more on you personally, we've heard that you have kind of an eclectic music taste. So we were just wondering, what is one music group that you would categorize as such?
Great question. I think I could probably go with just what's front and center, what I most recently purchased from iTunes, which was, I found a great Dutch singer named Caro Emerald, and she has a really cool jazz, almost jazz club upbeat tone and feel to her, with some good beats and a nice pop voice to it that blends really well. So discovered Caro Emerald the last couple of weeks. I'm really liking that. But then I also found myself last night needing to get a lot of work done, and I went right into an old standby of Van Morrison, and just eased into some Van Morrison, and I got moving right along. So as you both know, it depends on the hour of the day and the day of the week in terms of what's going to be playing. But right now, Caro Emerald is front and center, and I'd urge you to look into her. She's pretty cool, and she got some good beats, and her story's a pretty neat one.
Yeah, I might go check that out later. And so, just regarding your job, we know your job's hard, and we just wanted you to talk about that. What are some of the biggest challenges of your job, and how do you address them?
Great question, Vinay. And, I think more than anything with my job is so much of it is responding to what happens versus being able to guide and direct what happens. And as we know in life, so much of life is about how we respond to those things that occur to and around us versus those things that are in our control. But for me, in particular, the biggest challenge is the lack of regular student contact. That's a huge concern and difficult piece for me. So ways in which I work around them, I plant myself at the crossroads when I'm able to in the morning between about 8:20 and 8:35, and get garbled mouthfuls of good morning on the way from breakfast to class and back, and I appreciate that. Also, I love having breakfast with the 3 or 5 of you leaders every other Tuesday. That's important for me. That's a priority on my calendar. And then at least monthly shindigs up at Howe Residence, where we have the classes up for milk and cookies and ice cream and foosball and ping pong and epic games of Uno, which I always seem to lose, and not to mention Jenga as well. But really working to manufacture and ensure there's regular points of contact that are meaningful with our students is the biggest challenge of my job. I went into this a long time ago as a classroom teacher and a coach and a dorm head and an advisor, and I still very much so see myself as that individual, and it's very difficult when I don't have that regular reminder of this important work that we do, and that is working directly with all of you students.
So do you wish that you had more regular contact with the students?
Yeah, Sky, I do, and I appreciate you asking that. And the question is how do we make that happen? And right now the reality is we're working so hard to finish our $25 million capital campaign and get that taken care of. And a lot of fundraising does not happen here on campus. It happens out and about, and so I'm unable right now to commit to what I'll call a regular schedule in that respect. So as soon as I finish this, I'd love to sit down, with Mr. Messino, with Ms. Blaylock, with the dean's office, and really try to find ways in which we could rely on me on a more regular basis and plug in. And I just spent last weekend up at Monarch and was present for ski weekend, and just another reminder. I love being with our students, and that's so important, and it gives me the fuel and the energy to push through and finish big projects like this capital campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of the capital campaign, you've done quite a bit of traveling this year just to, talk to alumni and raise some money for that. Where was your favorite place that you visited?
Well, that's a great question, Sky. And, so many of them are so unique and so different, and there are areas of strong personal interest. I spent some time up in Montana, both up on Flathead Lake and in Bozeman and Missoula, and also in Billings. I had a wonderful, epic day. The stars aligned, and I was able to go skiing with an alum up at the Snow Bowl in Missoula, Montana. Awesome. And personally, that was one of the highlights of my year. In terms of travel and having my horizons broadened, it's pretty hard to beat going to the Far East for me. I went into Tokyo, and then Seoul, and then Beijing, Shanghai, and finished in Hong Kong. The history, the culture, the people, the Fountain Valley community over there, really, really powerful, and had left such an impression on me. All of those areas are so drastically different from each other, obviously geographically close in proximity. The history, the culture, the nuances, learning those details, and especially being treated to that through the eyes of the residents, i.e. our families and our graduates. That was pretty powerful for me, and really had a big impact on me. I found myself spending much of my 15-hour flight home really thinking about that, and just the experience overall for our students, for our alumni, for our community, and how important it is to be connected on a global scale.
Yeah.
It's definitely good to have you back after all that traveling.
I appreciate that.
Just kind of student traveling as well. We do have a program called Interim, and as Interim kind of is approaching, it's happening in March. Do you get nervous when the school sends off all our kids to international places?
It's so funny. I never expected that, Vinay. I never expected that Interim is actually one of the most stressful weeks of the year for me, because I am here on campus with my fingers crossed, my toes crossed, my eyes crossed for that matter, as all of our students and all of our faculty are all over the country and all over the world, and I just hope that nothing goes wrong. And so it is a lot more stressful than I ever imagined it to be, and without a doubt every year there's one hiccup, one incident that we work through, and we have a good team on the ground here. We get to troubleshoot. I get to feel helpful and supportive and active in my role with Interim at that point in time, and I'm better if I'm managing a situation than if I'm sitting there hoping one doesn't happen. So that puts me a little bit more at ease, ironically, and yet Interim is such a powerful program for us, and I think that ideally, honestly, if we could even expand it, that would be wonderful. It's hard to do. You never want to take classroom days away from our curriculum, yet there's such powerful learning that happens through Interim and everything that we do right from the get-go. I remember last year we had a whole Interim get stuck in the Chicago airport for 24 hours. And there's a learning opportunity there. These things happen, and so much good comes out of that experience. So it's such a powerful program, and I just do my best to stay as calm as possible and not stress about what could go wrong, and be excited about what goes right.
Yeah.
I know that Interim's pretty popular not only among the students but also among the teachers.
Yes.
That being said, is there a particular Interim that we're offering this year that you would be interested in participating?
Well, I mean, we'll start with all of them. Let's just do that. But interestingly, there's one that we've offered consistently over the years that is of great interest to me personally, and that's backpacking on the Anasazi Trail. And going in to that part of the West, and seeing the history, seeing the geology, the culture, the landscape, and it's a very powerful trip, and especially on a spiritual level that I think a lot of people don't necessarily think of when they go into that trip. And you really find yourself living amongst history and seeing such a powerful part of our geographic environment, obviously the cultural history of the West. And I'm a firm believer in the value and the importance of unplugging. And backpacking helps you to unplug. And this one in particular, to be without a phone and without email and all those things would be heaven for me. I get a lot of emails, and I would love to not be tethered to a phone for that period of time. And I think there's, we were talking about it at lunch today, actually, how much I appreciate the natural rhythm of being in the outdoors and backpacking, going to bed when the sun sets, waking up when the sun rises, without the assistance of alarms and without the benefit of electricity. It's such a natural, I think, healthy component of that we could all experience. So that in particular is one that I really want to participate on.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. We take a lot of our resources here taken for granted. So one of our questions was, Sky and I are obviously seniors and we're graduating this spring. What's the best piece of advice you have for us before we leave?
Boy, it's hard to think of just one. I'll come forward first with a practical one, which is just go to class.
Yeah.
I'm dead serious. Just go to class. I think it's all too often, and this is the benefit and the value of boarding school, you all have had to manage yourselves in a manner that a lot of other students, when they get to college, haven't had to do. That being said, when there is not Mr. Kelly or Mr. Racine in the dean's office tracking you down when you're late to class or sleeping through or following up and giving you restitution, it can be the approach of some, especially first-year students in college, is to say, screw it, I'm not going to go. And even if you haven't done the homework, even if you haven't had a lot of sleep, go to class. You get so much in college from being physically present in class. That's so important. And the second one, it relates to college, but it relates most importantly to life, which is build and maintain relationships. Especially now, we live in such a digital world, and you can easily operate digitally. There is no substitute for person-to-person, human-to-human relationships. Build relationships with your professors. Introduce yourselves. Go to office hours. That will surprise them, but that personal relationship will be of value to you and to them. Maintain the relationships you have with your classmates. Work to build even stronger, deeper relationships with your family as you go through this evolution of growth and maturation. All of a sudden your parents start to become your friends in very powerful ways, and you will eventually transition to being their caregivers. And the evolution and the depth of the relationship with your family is a very powerful one. And see them as the human beings they are. No one's perfect, including our parents, including our siblings, and we're lucky to have the people we do have in our lives. So build and maintain relationships. Those are the two most important things when you find yourself in times of greatest joy and also in times of greatest sorrow. It will be human beings upon whom you lean. It will not be computers or other devices. We can only gain comfort and solace and encouragement and support from other people, from other living beings, other animals, and so build those relationships. That's really important. And then finally, take time to celebrate joy. I think we think so much of the next thing, we're driven, we're doing, we're accomplishing. Take a deep breath, smell the roses, but celebrate your accomplishments. Mm-hmm. You're allowed to do that. It's not boasting, that's not bragging, that's you're being humble, and you're giving yourself the gift of celebration, and acknowledgement of your hard work and efforts, and then you move forward and keep moving onward and upward. Those would be the three that I would recommend.
Great pieces of advice. I think those could really be applied, I think, here as well, not only in college, but also just in our daily lives.
Yeah.
Besides maybe the going to class part. But,
nice.
But yeah, thanks for joining us, Mr. Webb.
Yeah. No problem. Thank you guys. I appreciate this, and I look forward to doing it again sooner than later.
Yeah.
And keep up the good work. I appreciate all you guys do. Please know that.
Thanks, Mr. Webb. We appreciate you as well.
Thanks.